Hi friends, it's Mr. Alex from Adams Memorial Library, and I'm back with a Valentine's Day craft that I think you're absolutely gonna love. Now, for this craft, we're going to make some of our own cards for Valentine's Day using a bubble art technique that we learned during our Scribbles and Ink Inquire Within activity. If you didn't participate in that activity, that's okay, because I'm going to show you all of the steps that you'll need to follow. But if you did participate in that activity, then that's great. You're already an expert. Don't forget that you can always come here to the library to either our front desk or curbside pickup and get your very own craft kit that'll help make the craft that I'm going to show you today. Let me show you what we'll need to get started. Alrighty, so for our craft to make our own bubble art Valentine's Day cards, we're going to need a couple of things, some of which you'll find in your craft kit and some things you might have to gather at home. So the first thing you're going to need, obviously, is your card, and we do have this card paper and an envelope paired with it that should be in your craft kit. You're going to need some bubble wrap, obviously, to make our bubble art. We're going to need one of these daubers that'll help us apply paint, and then obviously we will also need some paint. We're going to give you some red paint, but if you want to make hearts that are other colors, any color hearts are great, so you may want to hunt up some other colors of paint at home. We also are going to need something to cover our workspace with, so that's why I have this paper plate and these paper towels, because we definitely don't want to get any paint or marker on our nice tablecloth here. I also have some markers. These aren't in your craft kit, but again, I'm going to show you a couple alternate ways to make the bubble art, and those of you who watched our Scribbles and Ink episode already know where I'm going with this, that these will definitely help us make our bubble art as well. So any markers that you have at home will be a big help. Then finally, we are going to need some scissors to cut our bubble wrap and help make our card. So let's go ahead and gather all of this stuff up, and once you have it, we can get started making our card. So now that our surface is covered, we are ready to begin making our Valentine's Day card. And before we can begin painting, we want to make sure that we create our bubble wrap stamp that we're going to use to create our card art with. Now, I have some pieces of bubble wrap here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut them into a shape of a heart. You don't have to cut yours into the shape of a heart. You can cut it into any shape that you want, but I think a heart would be great for Valentine's Day, so that's what I'm going to do. Just as there are different shapes that you can cut your bubble wrap into, there are different ways to make a heart shape. You could just draw a heart using a marker on the bubble wrap and cut it out that way, but I like to make sure that my hearts are even. So what I'm going to do is take my bubble wrap, fold it in half, and then I'm going to cut it into a half shape of a heart, just like this. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this facing me, so it might be a little hard to see, but I'll show you the end result as I'm done cutting. So we want to cut a valley for our heart, and then we're just going to curve it around into a straight line that leads right to the center of our fold. And we want the seam of our fold to be right here on the side, because that's what's going to allow us to unfold our heart and have something that looks like this. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to fold it in half, cut a shape that looks like this, and it comes down to a point, and it'll open up into a nice heart. If that's a little bit too tricky for you, like I said, you could draw a heart and cut it out, or make any other shape that you want. Now, at this point, you do have a couple of other options. You could take some cardboard and you could tape your bubble wrap stamp with the flat side taped to the cardboard, and that'll make your stamp a little firmer. I'm okay with using my bubble wrap like this, so I'm not going to add cardboard, but if you have any younger crafters or you're having trouble managing the bubble wrap, that can definitely be one way to make this project a lot easier. So you're going to take your bubble wrap, you're going to put it onto, I have a paper plate, but you're going to put it somewhere that you can put some paint. We're going to give our paint a good shake to mix it all up, and we're going to put some on our plate. Alrighty, now the next thing that I want to do is I want to take my dauber and I want to apply it across my bubble wrap. Now, keep in mind that the heavier the paint, the more pronounced the bubbles will be, and the lighter the paint, the less pronounced they'll be. So you might, what that means is that you might not see the bubbles as well if you don't put enough paint on. And if you put too much on, you might not be able to tell that it's bubble wrap. It'll just look like a bunch of dots. So you want somewhere in the middle, ideally, but if one or the other side also appeals to you, you can do that too. So I'm going to go ahead and take my paint dauber and my red paint, and I'm going to go ahead and just smoothly apply it across my bubble wrap until the whole thing covered. Alrighty, once I feel pretty confident that my paint is evenly applied, I'm going to flip my bubble wrap onto the card so that the bubbles with the paint on them are facing down. Now, again, I mentioned that this can be a little bit messy, and if you have trouble doing this, then it might not be a bad idea to, before you apply your paint, take a piece of cardboard and tape it to the back. So I think I'm going to be okay like this, but again, if you think this looks a little bit tricky, feel free to add some cardboard to firm things up a bit. But I'm going to take my heart with my bubble wrap, gently lift it up, try really hard not to get paint everywhere, and then I'm going to set it down onto my card. Once it's on my card like this, I'm going to gently press to apply the paint. And we want to do this in an even, consistent manner. We don't want to put so much pressure that it pops the bubbles, but we do want enough pressure that it will transfer the paint. We also don't want to wiggle our bubble wrap around too much because that might smear some of the paint, and then it'll be difficult to see that our heart shape is made of bubbles. So once I've applied some pressure, I feel that the paint is transferred. I'm going to gently peel up the bubble wrap. And it'll look like this. I can then take my bubble wrap, set it aside on my plate, and I'm actually going to set the whole plate aside because I'm done with the paint now. And we'll have something that looks like this. So as I mentioned, the places where I maybe didn't have as much paint as I thought, right here around the edge, you can see that it's a little bit lighter. There are some parts in the middle where you can definitely tell that it looks like bubble wrap, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. And there are some bubbles like this one up here that are maybe a little darker or a little heavier because we had a bit too much paint. So keep that in mind that when you're doing yours, whichever look you think looks the best, that's about how much paint you're going to want to apply. Now, as I mentioned, there are also some other ways that you can make bubble art. You can use markers, and we learned this in our Scribbles and Ink activity. So I have a smaller heart that I've cut here, and what we can do is take our marker and just gently color over our bubble wrap, applying the marker ink to the bubble wrap, and then transfer it onto the card as well. Again, if you have trouble doing this, it's a little bit difficult to work with. Adding some cardboard can definitely make your stamps a little bit firmer. But I'm just going to take my bubble wrap, and I'm going to gently color over it with the marker, applying the ink, and get ready to stamp this onto our card. Alrighty. So at this point, we're going to have something that looks like this, and we're going to go ahead and set it on our card. Again, apply some pressure to transfer our ink, but not pressing so hard that we pop our bubbles. And then we're going to lift up and see that the ink is transferred. We've made some bubble art. Now, especially with the marker, which is a bit lighter than the paint, it might be a little bit difficult for some people to tell that that's supposed to be a heart. So what I'm going to do for my card is I'm going to take our marker and I'm going to draw a heart shape around the edge of the bubble art. This isn't something that you have to do if you like how your bubble art looks as it is. That is totally awesome. But I think mine's going to look great with a little bit of an outline. So I'm going to apply that now. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with this red marker that I have around my red heart. And at that point, I'm going to have something that looks like this. And I think that's pretty great. Now, at this point, we can take our bubble wrap, set it aside with our other paint and materials, and we can decorate our card further. So again, I have my markers. We could draw more hearts. We could draw something that we love to put on our Valentine's Day card, or we can write a message. So I'm going to write Happy Valentine's Day on mine. Alrighty. So, just like that, we have an awesome Valentine card that is ready to send. There's also space on the inside of our card. It's blank if we want to write a message to someone, telling them how much we appreciate them or how much we love them. And then we can send this card off in our envelope to that person that we made it for. So, our Valentine's card is complete. I want to thank everybody who came out and made this craft with us today, and I hope that you send your cards to someone special. Now, on that note, one thing that I would like to say before we finish this video is that if you're planning on sending the card that you made, be aware that it might need a few extra stamps. So check with your local post office to see what kind of postage it needs before you mail your card out. Something that doesn't cost a stamp, though, is to send pictures of your card to us here at the library at kids@adamslib.org. And Miss Karen and I would love to see all of the wonderful Valentines that everybody has made. So don't forget to send us pictures, and definitely don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube to get updates about other crafts and further activities that we're doing here at the library. As always, happy crafting!